the struggle in that actually turned out to make me better, which is what I recruited what I needed to be a great entrepreneur. But what I was driven by was freedom. I wanted freedom. And I found that being a business owner would give me that very thing I was looking for. Free in this domain, freedom. Insurance, first of all, is recession-proof. It is a true residual income industry. It's noble work. We sell insurance overtly, but covertly, what we're really doing is selling assurance.
Yeah, selling peace of mind.
Peace of mind. When my authentic self is more and more lived, then I don't really go find people. I'm more magnetic.
Yeah.
So people come to me.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. We got another great show for you today. A little bit different than normal. We've got Kash Fadai on, and we're going to get spiritual on you. He knows a lot about meditation. If you're interested in meditation, we're going to get into know thyself and let the beauty free. It's in there. If you know yourself, you can make faster decisions, better decisions. He's going to talk about finding his path. And we're going to end on insurance. Sounds crazy, but there's some excitement in insurance if you're in your 20s. Check out the show and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Kash, I really appreciate you making time coming out of the woods, or I guess was it woods in Woodland, Texas, coming out of the woods to make time to share your story, share your insights. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Man, Matthew, I'm so stoked to be here. Thanks for having me, and I'm ready to jump in with anything we can discuss.
Oh, well, lucky for you, we're going to discuss you, and we're going to get into immigrating. My mom was an immigrant, immigrating at age 11, like so many of my friends from Iran about the same time, and becoming an entrepreneur. But we're going to talk about becoming an entrepreneur in insurance, which is really a big opportunity for young people right now. The industry is changing, and super cool, bringing meditation and spirituality into business. We're going to talk about all that. But before we do, Kash, I got to know, what's your definition of excellence?
Knowing thyself, knowing and being clear on who you really are. That then brings about what you are, which is excellence. But knowing that is the key. That's what I would have to say, Matthew.
Okay, so know thyself, so you're clear on who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's self-exploration. That's pulling away those negative thoughts. That's getting over the baggage you have. So your excellence comes from releasing yourself to be excellent.
Right. You disidentify with the notions and the thoughts and the belief systems, and you divest from those, and you then uncover who you really are. And it turns out who you really are is bliss, joy, peace, awareness, consciousness, if you will. And so that's what I've discovered in my humble journey, and that's what I prescribe, because that's the essence of excellence.
Wow. Well, I just did another podcast an hour ago, and the person was talking about understanding your values, understanding your vision, understanding your mission. The one before that I did, the person was talking about going down a path and then thinking into the distance, where is this path leading me? Both of them talked about clearing out the baggage. So all three super successful, excellent people are aligned. Discover yourself, know thyself, be clear on who you are, and then that brings about what you are, which is excellence. I love that. Or bliss. I love that too.
Yeah.
I already want to work in your industry because this is way better than corporate jargon. So we're going to get into how do you start Fadai Institute and build an 8-figure company from scratch. Why insurance? How to revolutionize insurance, how to approach business in a different way, like this spirituality and meditation we're already seeing. But we got to go back a little bit. Let's go back into your history. You're in Iran. And I have a lot of Persian friends, and I just have to pause and say, shout out to my Persian goddaughters who I'm taking to France as a present to them because they're such wonderful people. Next week, shout out to Alyssa and Audra, who have taught me how to eat lots of butter. I ate Caspian restaurant and all that kubade, and I couldn't understand why I was getting so fat. And then I saw their grandmother make it. And if you haven't had Persian food, go get some Persian food. I recommend bagali polo, salad shirazi. Don't get the lamb shank, get the kubade. But there's a lot of butter. And when you're 25 years old and you eat it 4 days a week, you get fatter and fatter and fatter. So I'd just like to know, you immigrated here. There was a lot of people immigrating. What I find is a lot of times they went to very strange places. So where did you come to first?
Great question. So my dad and my mom and dad, they were in the Iranian or Iranian Navy.
Oh.
So they used to send my dad to Florida. He was fond of Florida. So naturally, when we migrated out, we came to Florida.
Okay, you got lucky. I mean, I have lots of Persian friends, and if you don't know the history, there was a revolution and people fled for their life. Many people came to America. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm going to pause for a second. I was 8. So you were 11, I was 8. It was 1979, right?
Yep, 1979.
And I'm watching the news, and my dad comes to me. This is such a cool dad story. My dad comes to me and he says, hey, we're going to have a couple Iranian women move in with us for a while. And I said, Iranian women? They're terrorists, Dad. And I'm 8 years old. And he said, that's why they're moving in. And there were 2 refugees that came to New Mexico, because that's where I was from. And a lot of refugees went to very different places, and some of them maybe not as welcoming of different people as Miami might be or LA might be. And we had 2 Persian women live with us, and that was my dad's kind of tolerance training at 8 years old.
Incredible, man.
That's pretty cool. So you immigrated during a revolution. You immigrate to Miami. English is a language at all for you at the time?
Actually, Matthew, I'll back up just a little bit. When I was 5 years old, 1979, we actually made it into Germany. So at 5.5, 6, we went to Germany. They took us in as refugees. Stayed there for 5 years. Obviously have the American dream. Boom. 1984, I'm 11 years old. We come to Florida. So I was already speaking Deutsch. But now I had to learn German.
So you speak Farsi, you were speaking Deutsch, you had to learn German, and then you come to America at now how old?
I'm 11 years old.
11 years old.
Florida. I'm in Tampa Bay, not Miami. I'm in Tampa Bay. There's really no Persians out there. So I had to really acclimate into sort of the South, you know?
Yeah. So it's not as warm and as open. I've had 3 or 4 of my friends that immigrated from Iran, and similar. Maybe they came straight here, maybe they went around, but they ended up in a place that didn't have a whole lot of Persians. So what did that do to change who you are and to help you become an entrepreneur?
I think in retrospect, Matthew, it helped because I didn't have that crutch. I didn't have the Persian community as a shelter. Some would say, well, that would be a positive, but the struggle in that actually turned out to make me better, which is what I recruited what I needed to be a great entrepreneur. In other words, the struggle turned out to be good for me because I had to adapt. I had to acclimate. My name was Khashayar Fadai. I dressed different because I had come from Germany, European looking. And so I had to struggle a lot, but having overcome that struggle then gave me the components I needed later on.
Yeah, it gives you the grit. And there's so many people that, maybe grew up in a little bit more fortunate environment or full silver spoon in their mouth. And the parents are always trying to make sure that they give them grit because you have to adapt, you have to overcome, you have to struggle to become strong. So you're in middle school in Tampa Bay, probably picked up English fluently by high school, right?
Yeah, super fast.
Yeah.
English is a Germanic language in its root, and Germanic in its root is part of the Indo-European language group, which is Indo-Aryan or Indo-Iranian. So it's the same root.
Yeah.
And as a child, kid, you're a sponge, as you can, needless to say. So I picked it up quick, and I became American super quick because I had to adapt. I had to adapt to my environment. And so, I was a chameleon and I adapted, and I was a diplomat, and I made friends, and it worked out for me. There were struggles for sure, but I forged through it, so to speak.
So you headed to high school, which at the time may feel like the best years of your life or the worst. Looking back, hopefully every era gets a little bit better. Were you focused in I have a hard time believing you were focused on becoming an insurance entrepreneur and revolutionizing insurance. What were you aiming for? Were you motivated? Were you just getting by? What was going on in high school?
I was a C student because I was more focused on being accepted and trying to find clicks. But what I was driven by was freedom. I wanted freedom because coming out of Iran, the theme of my life has been seeking freedom. Later, that freedom seeking became, well, I want freedom with time. I want freedom with money. The things that my folks couldn't afford for me because they were sacrificing. Interestingly, Fadai means sacrifice. So that's kind of poignant. But I was looking for freedom, and I found that being a business owner would give me that very thing I was looking for. Free in this domain, freedom.
Freedom. It doesn't give you chance to be lazy. It doesn't give you a bunch of extra hours off. It probably won't give you money if you're not finding passion and freedom, but it does give you freedom. It gives you freedom to do things your way. So
you nailed it, Matthew. You nailed it.
And in high school, you already knew this?
Yeah, because I grew up fast, right? I mean, I grew up going from one, here I am, this Iranian kid, life is awesome, and all of a sudden I'm in Germany. So I had to
What city? What city?
Yeah, Wiesbaden.
Okay, where's that?
Next to Frankfurt.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I grew up. My growth was more accelerated in that sense. So learning different languages, So I started reading. What happened was I started reading about how Persians were in the Bible. So why are these Iranians in the Jewish Bible? So I started reading about Cyrus and Darius and Xerxes, which is my name, Khashayar, and that helped me read more, which later again helped me with the command of the English language. And those rabbit holes started opening up, Matthew, because I was questioning why were the Iranians or the Persians in the Bible, and that opened rabbit holes towards Zoroastrianism and Sufism and Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism. And so I started reading a ton of stuff. So yeah, I grew up kind of fast. I started asking the right questions.
And did you read The Fall of the Human Intellect?
No, I did not read
Vedanta book. That's one of my favorite books.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. And so you're going down you're just inquisitive. You got a thirst for learning. You're curious, and you're letting your curiosity run. And what I hear on this podcast a lot is when you're curious and you're just looking around, you notice little things. And somehow you piece that together through spiritual studies, through reading religious documents, that I need to be in charge of where I'm going, and I need to get through high school, get through college, and start a business. So you were a C student. You're reading these books in high school. So you're a smart, inquisitive kid. Were you in sports? Were you in music? Were you doing anything like that?
I was a, I, being, you would appreciate this, being an Iranian, I got into wrestling because in Iran, wrestling is our national sport. And so I was a really good wrestler and it was natural to me. And that helped me be cool too, right? I was a
Yeah,
jock.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's what that was all about. But yeah, as you read more, you become more aware of things
Mm-hmm.
that builds your network of understanding. So you ask better questions. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So more questions, more knowledge, more awareness, and it kind of repeats itself.
And the spirituality and the meditation and the thoughtfulness helps you to be aware of what's passing by and be able to catch and focus and concentrate and get rid of the cloud.
Yeah, it slows down the dialogue, the internal dialogue slows down a little bit, and there's
Yeah.
more
Observation.
observation,
Yeah.
more curiosity and observation. That's very helpful, very helpful. Yeah.
So you started off wise, and what is wisdom? Wisdom is time plus experience. If you get a bunch of experience by the time you're 11 years old, you're going to be wiser than some 50-year-old people that don't have the experience. Did you go to college after high school?
Definitely. I went to St. Petersburg College and did a little bit of, studying there. But then in 1998, when one of these rabbit holes, Matthew, I read this book. It was Deepak Chopra. It was a cassette, actually. The silver lining was always everything I read, Matthew, was saying, go within, go within. I'm like, what? How do you go within? So Deepak Chopra back then said, well, meditation is how you go within. So I did a little research on him, and his teacher was the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which is the Beatles guru in the 60s. So I picked up a phone book because back then we didn't have, Google. I looked up the TM Center in Tampa, Florida, and I went down there and I learned how to meditate because I wanted to go within. Because every literature I read, Matthew, said the answers are within. Even in Greece, right? The Delphi, right? It says, know thyself, right? So I'm like, well, how do you go within? Meditation. All right. So I went and learned, paid $600 at the time, and I started meditating. And
And
that's,
wait, and how old are you at this point in time?
I was 20, gosh, early 20s.
Okay, so you go to high school.
I was 24.
So you go to high school, you go to college, you're inquisitive, you're curious, you find meditation right after college. What were you doing for a living then?
I was selling cars.
Oh, you were.
But my first business was at 13 years old, Matthew, where I decided cutting lawns. I did it for a very good price point with my neighbors, the older folks around my neighborhood, and I did extra work. And so my name got out, and all of a sudden my dad had to get his truck because I had like 100 customers, So that was my experience with my first business. It was a lawn care business. But the reason I brought up 1998 is because once I learned TM, I changed colleges and went to Fairfield, Iowa, and I attended the Maharishi University of Management. And my study there was higher states of consciousness. So I wanted to just mention that because it's an interesting little twist. From St. Pete College, I changed to MUM, Maharishi University of Management.
So it really is a lifelong calling, right? It's a lifelong calling. And when you have the freedom of entrepreneurship, you can build your business and you can build your career and you can help build futures with a lot of people that align, which now it makes sense how this all came together. So back to college. You're in college. Are you working? Are you still wrestling? Are you getting good grades?
At that point, Matthew, my whole focus was enlightenment. I
Okay, so
wanted,
you're in college
yeah,
in the wrong place. And you could tell you're in the wrong place. And if you're listening right now, you can be in the wrong place at work. You can be in the wrong place where you live. You can be in the wrong place. Before you move, you've got to do some thinking. You've got to know thyself. You've got to do some internal study. Is it you? Is it the place? Are you going to really be there? Some of our other guests have talked about looking in the distant future, but I always talk about you just kind of know it in your gut, especially if you got high EQ. You kind of know something's not right, something might be better. And so you started reading even more, and you found your home, and you go to this new home, and it's a spiritual university, just like a spiritual insurance company. You go to your new home, and you're studying meditation, and you're reading all these different philosophical books. You get your degree in what?
In higher states of consciousness. It's called the TM Cities program.
TM Cities.
What had happened, Matthew, was in these meditations, something paranormal happened. One time when I was meditating, it wasn't just relaxation. There was a session in my journey in one of these particular meditation sessions, 20 minutes. I experienced something that was euphoric. And once that blissful experience happened, I only read about that. And I believed it could happen one day. But one day, I tasted it. And it wasn't induced by anything external. It wasn't a drug. It wasn't anything from the outside. It was just me sitting quietly saying a mantra. But this experience happened. And that experience got me smitten. It changed my life. Because I was like, how could I sit here and experience this tangible, visible, measurable experience? And it was bliss. That's the only way I could say it. It was supreme joy, bliss. And that was what I could never unsee that again. And I've been stabilizing that experience ever since. So that's what happened at MUM.
Was the experience of clarity? Was the experience of self-understanding?
No, it wasn't any of that. It was a highly, highly restful state, the dichotomy, but fully alert at the same time. Well, Kash, what does that mean? Okay, let me just help you and your audience.
Was it enlightenment? Were you momentarily enlightened?
It's a gradation of enlightenment. Okay. There's different gradations of enlightenment. This was what they call a Kundalini experience, right? Where there's this inner energy that we all have. And it was activated, Matthew. Something activated in me when I settled the mind down. I went beyond thoughts, right? I went beyond thoughts, and the gap between thoughts, I accessed this sort of ocean, if you will, and that activated an internal energy that then resulted into bliss, joy, and very dynamic, creative experience. Kind of like if you take, when you know that feeling when you wake up in the morning, you're highly alert and you feel great. Okay, take that. And you know that feeling when you fall asleep at night, just for a couple of moments, you feel like you're sinking into your bed and it's highly blissful. If you take those two experiences, you take them together, join them, but then you can experience that for 20, 30, 40 minutes. That is called samadhi or satori in the Buddhist tradition. This is also called nirvana. This is what I was experiencing, and that set up the trajectory of my life.
Okay, so I get asked a lot about how to meditate, and I have simple ways that I teach people. So you mentioned earlier, I get asked a lot, how do I meditate? And I have, quick format, and I run people through like a 1-minute guided meditation. But if you really want to learn it, you go down to the TM Center, and they're in they're everywhere, right?
They're everywhere. Yeah, you could just look up your local TM center anywhere, and part of the training is online, and then at some point you go in for the ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah, and TM is unique in the way it is. It's unlike most meditation techniques.
Yeah.
It uses a certain technology, which comes from the Vedic tradition of India.
Or you could also go to other forms of meditation, but what
Mhm.
you get from meditation, and I've heard of this nirvana and this bliss state, what you get is the ability to declutter the mind and the clouds. And when you start, there's just words flying everywhere and positive and negatives, and you just can't focus on your breathing is usually the start of meditation. With a lot of practice, you're able to clear the mind. And after many, many years, and I've only met a couple people that got to your point, one of them moved to Korea and lived in a temple for a year to obtain what you were just talking about. So it sets you straight. And how does that lead you to this insurance revolution that you're doing?
Yeah, so once I started to stabilize that experience, Matthew, I became more and more my authentic self.
Okay.
I wasn't the thoughts, I wasn't the
Mm.
feelings, I wasn't the belief systems anymore. The ego structure started to become softer, and I became more and more my true self, my authentic self. When I became my authentic self more and more, as I said earlier, I became more and more clear on who I was, where I was going, what I wanted, and I began to receive revelations, aha moments, synchronicities. And that guided me, if you will. I became conducive, conductive. And so this voice, this higher self voice, if you will, guided me into my entrepreneur dreams.
So
And so that's
that
how it worked out.
that it's similar. It's a different way of saying what some other people have said. You have to be clear on who you are. You have to trust your gut. You have to train your gut. So through this clarity, and sometimes you're meditating on things. You could meditate on where am I going. You could meditate on an aspect. It's thinking things through, but you spend so much time thinking and so much time focusing that then you, so to speak, your gut kind of knows for you, and then you can trust your gut. But if you're totally confused and not clear, maybe it's not as easy to trust your gut.
Exactly. Once you become clear, there is a knowing
Yeah.
and there is less doubting,
Yeah.
right? You recognize, here it is, discernment. Your discernment becomes acutely sharp. And you can recognize the ego part of ourselves, which is, influenced by old belief systems and patterns, and you could distinguish it from the infinite self.
Mm.
So you can distinguish the infinite self and the higher voice, the higher self voice, from the clutter. You realize you're not the clouds, you're the sky.
Mm.
And you are now present in the now. And you'll notice that the ego self, the clutter, as you mentioned it, loves to spin rhetoric,
Mhm.
either in the future or in the past, anxiety or depression, self doubt. And
Mhm.
so you then expose the ego because of the discernment, because you know who you are. And so when you see that rearing up its head, the
Yeah.
doubt, the unbelief, the disbelief,
It's not
you
present.
can just create that space
Yeah.
and see it for what it is and come back to your present,
Mm.
to your sky, who you really are. And that then causes the ego to shatter. And now you are more sure of who you are. And so now your thoughts, words, and deeds have power. So when you go to create, to be creative as an entrepreneur, creativity is exuding out of you. You become creative and more dynamic and more confident. So that is very helpful as an entrepreneur. That's very helpful.
And so you have a team of people now working in your company. Did you hire people? I'm wondering how you spread this around your company. And I work with college students all the time, and believe it, 20 somethings would love to hear this. 20 somethings want to know how to clear themselves of their ego, how to live in the present, how to declutter their brain, how to meditate. They love it. Are you finding, in my business, I bring people in and we do life planning, goal setting, vision. We do all this weird stuff that other companies don't do. And that's part of the reason people come and part of the reason people stay here. Are you doing that? Are you bringing in like-minded people already? Or is this a bonus for working in your business that you get some training like this?
Such a good question, my brother. What happens is, in my humble experience, when my authentic self is more and more lived, then I don't really go find people. I'm more magnetic.
Yeah.
So people come to me. And when they come to me, they're meant to come for me.
Yeah.
And because I demonstrate my authentic self, then they, at that point, want to follow. They follow.
They get curious.
They see who I am.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, spiritually, familially, financially. I live it out. And so they're curious and they're engaged. Yeah. And that's how I built my team culture, which, by the way, is one of the most important formulas for an entrepreneur, is to build the correct team culture. And leadership is key. So who you are as a leader, if you're your authentic self, that team culture, it comes from that. It comes from who you are. And the more clear we are, the more that team culture is robust.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to understand if you can't read between the lines, because someone might think, well, what if who you are is a horrible person? No, that's not who you are. There's something blocking you from being who you are. So if there's a horrible person that likes to take advantage of people, yeah, that's not who they can build a company like that. Probably won't do that well, but it's not who they are, because people
That's
really
exactly right.
are excellent inside. And when you let it out, other people want to let theirs out too. And then it becomes, it's the freedom to build the business the way you want to build it, aligned with your values and your way of doing things as an entrepreneur. And the people that come on the boat with you are the ones that want to do that too. And then see a little bit of that vision and see that future. So tell us about this fascinating. Tell us about, though, insurance. Why insurance? College students, why would I ever do insurance? And what's about to happen?
Insurance, first of all, is recession-proof. Back in the Great Depression, insurance was solvent. Back in 2008, when I started to grow my agency, we were going through some, economic turmoil. Insurance was solvent. Even now, some could argue that we're in some inflationary period. Insurance, people cannot part with it. It's the backbone of the economy, number one. Number two, it is a true residual income industry. When people fall in love with you and your legendary service, they stay with you and they send people to you. And when that policy renews every 6 to 12 months, you're building passive income, right? So that's beautiful. The other thing is that it's mobile. You have latitude. You could do it anywhere. You don't have to show up at a brick and mortar office. Our industry is that way. And it's scalable. So, I also would like to add the fourth element, which is it's noble work. We sell insurance overtly, but covertly, what we're really doing is selling assurance.
Yeah, selling peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Mm.
So when people begin to trust you as their liaison, their advisor, that is a beautiful honor. I find it very sacred when they do that. So that's why I love what I do, and I do what I love. I love participating in my team's dreams, and yeah, it's something that a lot of folks don't know about because it's not something you go to school for. It's a trade. It's a
Mm.
master to student tradition.
Mm.
So that's another thing I like about it. Not everybody's doing it, like real
Yeah.
estate and cars. And this is sort of you come into insurance kind of from the side door. It's not something you grow up to be.
Mm.
But Fadai Insurance wants to change that. Insurance is exciting, it's fun, it's invigorating, and you could do it while you cultivate your authentic self.
Mm-hmm. And you said many people will get into insurance through college. Other people get there a different way. You don't have to go to college. You do have to have some character traits we'll leave off, but some skill sets. You have to be good with people, right? You have to be a good listener. What else do you, if I'm looking at myself thinking, do I really want to do that? This sounds pretty cool to me. I want to build a business like that. What do I need to have to do that?
Well, so Matthew, I said you don't go to college for
To be, yeah, yeah,
insurance.
yeah.
But back to your point, yes, emotional intelligence, I would
Mm,
say, is
mm,
key, right? Patience
mhm,
is another one. Of course, hard work that goes with anything, but problem solving, multitasking would
mhm,
be another one. Just the, those are certain things that to be persuasive. Remember, insurance is
mm,
abstract. It's
mhm,
not tangible. It's something that you people are in their head about it. They don't want to pay a lot, but the insurance agent has to do is say, look, I'm in the business of risk. If this possibility were to occur, here's how we mitigate that. And the way to do that effectively, Matthew, is to illustrate what ifs. And when a
mhm,
person can see, oh, well, if my house caught on fire or if I had an accident, this could happen to my loved ones, then yes, the onus is on us to reveal the possibilities
mm.
and then find solutions to mitigate those possibilities. And that's what
A-
an insurance agent producer does.
And you're in a consulting role often.
Yeah.
So everybody knows they need home insurance, car insurance. They got to get a policy on their wedding ring. Everybody knows that. Sometimes it gets a little bit more complicated. Sometimes it has to do with business value, key person insurance, buyout insurance. Sometimes there's cross purchase agreements. So it can become a challenging there's an avenue that you can go down where you'll spend a lot of your time solving challenging problems. There's an avenue you go down where you spend a lot of time with people. There's different avenues, and in the insurance business, there's 500 different types of roles in the insurance business, but they're all mobile, residual income, scalable, passive income,
Yeah.
people focused,
Yes.
relationship focused.
Yes.
And then just to your peace of mind, I used to have major anxiety flying on planes, sweaty palms, the whole thing. And I had a coach and he said, "What are you freaked out about?" "Well, what's going to happen to my kids?" I said, "Go figure it out." I got a trust, I got insurance, no more sweaty palms.
That's right.
I've had anxiety about what happens if I die with my business. Got insurance to buy me out. I know my family will be taken care of. So you are, and that problem solving, it was hard to do. We had to do a bunch of things to get all that done. But I had a person that helped me at solving my problems. And I
Right.
had two major times in my life where I was relieved of this, I guess, deep seated, some ego caused anxiety that when I solved the problem or someone solved the problem for me, I was able to achieve that peace of mind and then go work on whatever other causes of anxiety I had.
Yeah, yeah, Matthew. Insurance is cortisol control, if you will, right?
Mm,
We are the defensive strategy of the financial space. When you're when your assets are protected, the things that you depend on, that you toiled for, worked for, you have peace of mind. That gives you the privy, gives the consumer the privy to then go and invest. So we take care of protecting what you have, which is the foundation of your finances. So then you have that confidence to go and maybe invest in assets and develop more wealth, right? So that's how I like to, illustrate that to people,
All right. Well, our audience is mostly people that are in their 20s, many of them in college trying to figure out their career. We do this to kind of expose them to other careers. I just want to plug Fadaie Insurance. It's Fadaie insurance.com. Want to plug that. If you've got great people skills and you're a hard worker, if you ever did college works, maybe check this out. This could be awesome for you. And think about it again: mobile, residual income, scalable, passive. And what Kash is going to do is build a nationwide business. He's an entrepreneur and someone in insurance. And there's two different skill sets, two different life paths, but you can look at either of these. So check out fadaieinsurance.com, Fadaie. Check out Kash. Kash, thanks for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it. You've kind of reminded me I need to meditate more. I need to go read some of those books again. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your excellence.
My pleasure. Thank you, man.